Annabelle discovers her mother secretly transferring the family gourmet food business to her younger sister Taylor during what should have been her own promotion celebration. After 12 years of dedication, her mother coldly announces that Annabelle lacks the talent to lead Carson's Fine Foods, the business Annabelle helped build from a small deli into a regional powerhouse. Devastated, Annabelle watches as her sister smirks from behind their mother. "You have 2 weeks to clear out your office," her mother says. "It was always going to be Taylor's legacy." "I grew up in Portland, Oregon, watching my father slice meats and arrange cheeses with the precision of an artist. Carson's Deli was just a tiny corner shop when I was a child, but my father, James Carson, had bigger dreams. He would lift me onto the counter after hours, letting me sample new products while he talked about someday having stores across the Pacific Northwest. 'You have the palate, Annabelle,' he would say, his eyes crinkling at the corners. 'You can taste the difference between good and exceptional. That's rare.' From the time I was 8 years old, I spent weekends and summers working alongside him, learning every aspect of the business. By 12, I could manage the register. By 16, I was helping with inventory and ordering. My father and I would stay late, going over the books together, planning expansion strategies for when I finished college. Taylor, 3 years younger, never showed interest in the family business. While I was learning about food sourcing and profit margins, she was at the mall with friends or practicing for school plays. Our mother, Linda, encouraged this, praising Taylor's social butterfly personality. 'Not everyone needs to be obsessed with work like you two,' she would say, ruffling Taylor's hair affectionately while giving me a pointed look. I never minded. Dad and I had our special connection through the business, and Taylor had her bond with Mom. It seemed balanced, if separate. What I failed to notice was how my mother's smiles tightened whenever my father praised my work ethic or instincts. Everything changed when I was 22. I had just graduated with my business degree, excited to implement new ideas when my father collapsed in the stockroom one Tuesday morning. Heart attack. Massive. Fatal. The funeral remains a blur in my memory, but I clearly recall my mother's words at our kitchen table the following week, her voice unnaturally calm. "Your father may have had certain ideas about succession, but as the surviving owner, I need to make practical decisions." Those practical decisions included immediately promoting Taylor to assistant manager, despite her complete lack of experience or knowledge. I was stunned but accepted it, believing my years of training and education would eventually be recognized. "Taylor needs to learn the business from the ground up," my mother explained. "You already know everything. Be patient." So I waited, continuing to work 14-hour days, expanding our product line, cultivating relationships with local farmers and artisans. Over the next 8 years, I helped transform Carson's Deli into Carson's Fine Foods, a regional chain of 7 gourmet markets known for quality and innovation. All while watching Taylor breeze in late, take extended lunches, and claim credit for my ideas in management meetings. I might have continued indefinitely in this holding pattern if not for Marjorie, our longtime bookkeeper who had been with my father since the beginning. She called me into her cramped office one rainy afternoon, locking the door behind us. "I've been meaning to show you something for years," she whispered, pulling a file from her bottom drawer. "I kept waiting for the right time, but there never seems to be one." My hands trembled as I read the documents. My father had drawn up clear succession plans naming me as primary heir and future CEO of the company. There were detailed notes about the timeline for transition, even a letter addressed to me about his confidence in my abilities. "Your mother had me draw up new documents after the funeral," Marjorie said, her voice quavering. "I should have told you sooner, but I needed this job. I'm retiring next month, so I can't be fired anymore." That evening, I confronted my mother in her elegant living room, documents spread across her glass coffee table. "These were Dad's wishes," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "How could you just erase them?" My mother didn't even look surprised. She simply sipped her Chardonnay and raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Your father was sentimental, not practical. Taylor has the charisma this company needs to grow. You're too much like him, too caught up in traditions and quality to see the bigger picture." The bigger picture? Dad built this business on quality and tradition, and it remained a single store until I took over, she replied coldly. 7 locations in 8 years. That's my vision, not his. That expansion was my marketing plan, I reminded her, heat rising in my face. My vendor relationships, my product development. Details, Annabelle. Anyone can handle details. Taylor has presence, instinct. People respond to her. I left that night feeling like I was seeing my mother clearly for the first time. Yet, I stayed with the company, telling myself it was loyalty to my father's legacy. In truth, I couldn't imagine my life without Carson's Fine Foods. It was my identity, my purpose, my connection to the father I had lost too soon. If I had known what was coming next, perhaps I would have left on my own terms. The invitation arrived by company email, seemingly innocent. Strategic planning meeting, Thursday, 3 p.m., conference room A, mandatory for all department heads. As executive product developer, I assumed it would be another quarterly review. I spent the morning preparing my presentation on our new artisanal cheese line, sales projections neatly organized, samples arranged on a platter. Walking into the conference room, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The executive team sat stone-faced around the table. My mother stood at the head, Taylor beside her in a crisp new pantsuit. "Annabelle, good of you to join us," my mother said, as though I were late, though I was precisely on time. "We can begin now." She launched into a speech about company vision and future growth, phrases I had written in our last business plan. Then, she placed her hand on Taylor's shoulder. "It's time for fresh leadership at Carson's. Taylor has demonstrated exceptional insight over the past year, and the board agrees she's ready to take on the role of Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately." The board consisted of my mother, our cousin Patrick, who never disagreed with her, and our company lawyer. I sat frozen, my cheese samples forgotten. "What about my position?" I managed to ask. My mother's smile never reached her eyes. "Your product development skills have been valuable, but we're moving in a different direction. Less artisanal, more scalable. More profitable," Taylor added with a smirk. "You have 2 weeks to transition your projects and clear out your office," my mother continued. "We'll provide a reasonable severance package, of course." "Reasonable?" I echoed, finding my voice at last. "I've dedicated my life to this company. 12 years of 60-hour weeks. I created our best-selling product lines, which we appreciate," my mother cut in sharply. "But honestly, Annabelle, you lack the talent to lead this company forward. It was always going to be Taylor's legacy." The room spun around me. 12 years of my life erased in a 5-minute meeting. As executives filed out, avoiding my eyes, I sat paralyzed, staring at my useless presentation. "Don't worry," Taylor said, lingering behind. "I'll take good care of your cheese farmers." She laughed, patting my shoulder condescendingly before following our mother out. I don't remember packing my office or driving home. The next days passed in a haze of betrayal and disbelief. Then came the practical blows. My company credit card declined at the gas station. My key card to the apartment complex, company-owned housing for executives, deactivated. My health insurance terminated. My mother had moved swiftly to cut all ties. Standing on the sidewalk outside my former home, suitcases at my feet, I called the only person I could think of. "Jessica, I need help." My college roommate arrived within 30 minutes, helped load my belongings into her SUV, and took me to her guest room without questions. Only after she had made tea and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders did she ask what happened. When I finished explaining, her normally cheerful face was tight with anger. "That's beyond cruel, Annabelle. It's calculated. Your mom had this planned for years." "I know," I whispered. "I just never thought she hated me this much." "She doesn't hate you," Jessica said slowly. "She fears you. You're the real talent, the one who understood your dad's vision. That threatens her somehow." I spent the next weeks in a fog, sleeping late, barely eating, ignoring calls from concerned vendors and colleagues. I applied for unemployment benefits, stared at job listings without seeing them, and wondered how I'd failed so completely. Jessica tried her best, bringing home takeout, suggesting therapy, finally dragging me out for coffee just to change my scenery. But nothing penetrated the numbness until the day Darren, our head chef from the flagship store, showed up at Jessica's door. "I quit yesterday," he announced, stepping into the living room. "The quality standards are already dropping. They're switching to cheaper suppliers, cutting corners on preparation times." He handed me a folder full of documents. Taylor has no idea what she's doing. She's implementing changes without understanding the ripple effects. I thought you should know that several of us are ready to follow you, wherever you go next. I'm not going anywhere, I said flatly. There's nothing left. Darren leaned forward, his expression intense. Your father built something special. Your mother and sister are dismantling it piece by piece. Are you really going to let that be his legacy? His words struck something raw inside me, but before I could respond, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Is this Annabelle Carson? It's Margaret Patterson. Mrs. Patterson had been one of our first customers, an elderly woman who came every Wednesday for my father's roast beef sandwich. The store isn't the same, she said without preamble. The bread is different. The meat is sliced too thick. When I asked the new girl behind the counter, she didn't even know who I was. Her voice cracked. Your father always remembered I like extra horseradish. After I hung up, I looked at Darren and really saw him for the first time since he'd arrived. His worried face, his loyalty in coming here. They can take the company, I said slowly, but they can't take what I know, what Dad taught me. It wasn't much, but it was the first spark of anything besides despair I'd felt in weeks. A tiny flame of possibility in the darkness of loss. The kitchen at Sunnyside Diner smelled of grease and industrial cleaner, nothing like the aromatic herbs and fresh bread of Carson's. After 6 weeks of rejections from every food business in Portland, I had taken the only job available, prep cook at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. You're overqualified, the manager had said bluntly during my interview. But you seem desperate, and I need someone reliable. I was both overqualified and desperate. My mother had been thorough in her destruction of my reputation, calling every contact in her address book to explain my unfortunate termination due to quality control issues. The severance package, when it finally arrived, barely covered 1 month's expenses. Each morning, I arrived at 4:30 to chop onions and crack eggs into industrial-sized mixing bowls, my business degree and culinary training seemingly worthless. Yet there was something almost meditative about the simple, repetitive tasks, so different from the constant pressure of executive meetings and innovation deadlines. You dice those tomatoes like they've personally offended you, remarked Gina, the 60-year-old line cook who had taken me under her wing. But they're the most perfectly cut tomatoes I've ever seen. I managed a small smile. Force of habit. My dad was a stickler for consistency. Well, whatever daddy issues you're working through, they're good for my omelets, she joked, sliding a plate toward me. Eat. You're too skinny. The small kindnesses kept me going. Gina's extra food. Jessica refusing to discuss rent until I was back on my feet. Regular customers at the diner who began to request my precisely assembled club sandwiches. But recovery isn't a straight line. Just as I was establishing a new routine, Taylor appeared one morning at the diner counter, looking ridiculously out of place in her designer clothes. So this is where you landed, she said, eyeing the laminated menu with distaste. Interesting career move. I continued wiping down the counter. What do you want, Taylor? Just checking in on my big sister, she said sweetly. Mom was worried you might do something desperate after your little breakdown. Breakdown? I stopped wiping. Is that what she's telling people? Taylor shrugged. What would you call it? You disappeared for weeks, not answering calls, then suddenly you're flipping burgers instead of using your fancy degree. I'm not having this conversation here, I said, conscious of customers watching. No need to be embarrassed, Taylor continued, raising her voice slightly. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real business. Mom says you are always better with recipes than people. I felt my face burning, humiliation mixing with rage. You should leave. Gladly. I have an actual company to run. She stood, dropping a $20 bill on the counter. For your trouble. After she left, I fled to the back alley, gasping for air, tears threatening to spill. That's where Gina found me minutes later. Some sister you got there, she said, lighting a cigarette. Real piece of work. I couldn't even respond. You know what I think? She continued, exhaling smoke rings. I think she's scared. Of what? I managed. Of you getting back up. Gina tapped ash onto the pavement. People only kick when they're afraid you might still be dangerous. That night, I stared at my ceiling for hours, replaying Taylor's smug expression, my mother's coldness, the years of subtle undermining. Sleep finally came near dawn, and with it, a dream of my father. "The name means something, Annabelle," he said, his voice clear as life. "Carson stands for quality. Don't let them take that from you." I woke with tears on my face, but a strange sense of clarity. Carson's fine foods might belong to my mother and sister, but they couldn't own the knowledge, the relationships, the passion for real food that my father had instilled in me. That morning, instead of taking my usual route to the diner, I detoured to the farmer's market where Carson's buyers used to source our produce. Near the entrance, I spotted Franklin Garvey's display of heirloom tomatoes, his family farm a cornerstone supplier for our stores since my father's time. "Annabelle Carson!" he exclaimed, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Where have you been hiding? Your sister's new buyer hasn't been by in weeks." I felt a pang hearing this but forced a smile. "I'm not with Carson's anymore, Mr. Garvey. Family disagreement." His smile faded. "That explains the changes, then." New fellow they sent wanted to haggle prices down 40%. Said they were moving to centralized purchasing for all locations. I told him my tomatoes cost what they cost because they taste like actual tomatoes. As we talked, other vendors I knew approached, each with similar stories. New buyers demanding lower prices, quality standards dropping, payment terms extended without notice. "Your father understood value," said Eleanor from Pine Creek Dairy, who supplied our artisanal cheeses. "These new people only see numbers." Before I could respond, a tall man in a chef's coat approached, examining Franklin's tomatoes with professional interest. "Ryan Lawson," he introduced himself, shaking Franklin's hand. "Executive chef at Harper House, looking for a reliable supplier for my restaurant." "You won't find better than Franklin's tomatoes," I said automatically. "His black crims are perfect for caprese this time of year." Ryan turned, noticing me for the first time. "You sound like you know your produce." "This is Annabelle Carson," Franklin announced proudly. "Best palate in Portland. Her father taught her everything about quality ingredients." "Carson?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "From Carson's Fine Foods?" "Formerly," I said, feeling the familiar sting. Ryan studied me with unexpected intensity. "Interesting. I've been watching that company change lately, not for the better." He handed me a business card. "I'm looking for a consultant to help revamp our menu, someone who understands quality sourcing and can deliver consistency. If you're available, I'd love to talk." I stared at the embossed card, something fluttering in my chest that felt suspiciously like hope. "I might be," I said carefully. "I might be available after all." "Sourcing local isn't just about geography," I explained, spreading maps across Ryan's office desk. "It's about relationships and understanding growing seasons. This farm does amazing root vegetables, but their greens are inconsistent. This one has the best berries in summer, but struggles with consistent volume." Ryan nodded, making notes. 3 months had passed since our chance meeting at the farmer's market. What began as occasional consulting for Harper House had evolved into a full-time position as culinary operations director, overseeing both the restaurant's menu and a small line of packaged goods they sold in the dining room. "Your suppliers love you," Ryan observed. "Franklin practically adopted you on the spot last week." I smiled, remembering the elderly farmer's fierce hug. "They knew my father. He treated them fairly, built genuine relationships. Unlike your family's current business approach," Ryan said carefully. The familiar twist of pain came, but duller now. "Taylor doesn't understand that quality ingredients require investment. She's slashing costs wherever possible to show quick profits." "Short-term thinking," Ryan agreed. "Meanwhile, you've increased our quality while actually reducing our food costs by 15%. "Better relationships mean better prices," I said simply. "Plus less waste when you understand the ingredients properly." Ryan leaned back, studying me with that intense look I was coming to recognize. "I've been thinking. The packaged sauces and dressings you developed for the restaurant have been selling out every week. There might be an opportunity there." My heart quickened. "What kind of opportunity?" "A separate brand. Your recipes, my business backing. Start small, but with room to grow." "You want to start a food company? With me?" Ryan's expression was serious. "I want to build something authentic with someone who genuinely cares about quality. The restaurant industry is full of shortcuts and compromises. Your approach is different." I thought of my father, his passion for doing things the right way regardless of cost. I'd want creative control over recipes and sourcing. Absolutely. I handle business, you handle food. Equal partnership. Equal partnership. The words lingered in the air between us, heavy with meaning. In 12 years at Carson's, I had never been treated as an equal by my mother. What would we call it? I asked, surprised by the emotion in my voice. Ryan smiled. That's easy. Annabelle's Authentic. 2 weeks later, I stood in a small commercial kitchen we'd leased across town, surrounded by gleaming equipment and possibility. We had started with 5 products, my father's recipes refined and updated: herb-infused olive oil, roasted garlic aioli, spiced apple chutney, rosemary balsamic vinaigrette, caramelized onion jam. Labels just arrived, Ryan announced, carrying in a box. Want to see? My breath caught as he pulled out the first jar. Simple, elegant design, cream-colored background with botanical illustrations surrounding the name Annabelle's Authentic. Beneath it, in smaller text, quality worth sharing. They're perfect, I whispered, running my finger over the embossed logo. They're you, Ryan said softly, unpretentious but refined. Our eyes met, and something shifted in the space between us, more than business partners, less defined than friends. Before either of us could speak, my phone buzzed with a text from Amanda, my former assistant at Carson's who had stayed in touch secretly. You need to see this, the message read, followed by a photo of an internal memo. Taylor was announcing a new artisanal product line with packaging suspiciously similar to the designs Ryan and I had been discussing in the restaurant dining room last month. They're copying us before we even launch, I said, showing Ryan the phone. His expression hardened. They're watching you. Someone must have overheard us. Taylor always did take credit for my ideas, I said bitterly. But this is blatant. Ryan's response surprised me. Then we move faster. The Northwest Food Expo is next week. I know someone on the committee. We can still get a small booth. Next week? We're nowhere near ready. We have 5 perfect products, Ryan said firmly. Sometimes you don't need to be completely ready. You just need to be first. The week passed in a blur of production, packaging, and preparation. Sleep became optional as we bottled, labeled, and created display materials. By the morning of the expo, we had 200 jars of each product, professionally packaged and ready to sample. Setting up our modest booth between industry giants felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Across the convention center, I spotted the elaborate Carson's Fine Foods display, at least 3 times the size of our space, with Taylor holding court in the center. Ignore them, Ryan advised, arranging our tasting spoons. Focus on what makes us different. As the doors opened and attendees flooded in, I took a deep breath and smiled my first genuine smile in months. This wasn't about revenge or competition. This was about honoring my father's legacy of quality. His belief that food made with integrity spoke for itself. The morning passed in a steady stream of introductions, explanations, and samples. I watched faces light up as they tasted our products, the small pleasure of recognition that comes with exceptional flavor. This onion jam is incredible, enthused a boutique grocery buyer, taking a second sample. What's your wholesale minimum? Before I could answer, a familiar voice cut through the conversation. Annabelle. How quaint. Taylor stood at our booth, flanked by 2 Carson's executives, her eyes taking in our modest display with theatrical amusement. Hello, Taylor, I said evenly. Enjoying the expo? Just checking out the competition, she replied, emphasizing the last word sarcastically, though I use that term loosely. Ryan stepped forward, extending his hand with professional courtesy. Ryan Lawson, co-owner of Annabelle's Authentic. I don't believe we've met. Taylor ignored his hand. Small batch products are charming, but hardly scalable. Carson's is announcing our new premium reserve line today. National distribution, major marketing campaign, she smirked. We'll be in 500 stores by Christmas. With inferior ingredients and mass production, I replied calmly. Dad would be ashamed. Taylor's smile faltered for just a second. Dad isn't here. And Carson's has evolved beyond his corner deli mentality. As she walked away, Ryan squeezed my arm gently. You okay? I nodded, surprising myself with the truth of it. Actually, yes. For the first time in forever, I'm exactly where I should be. By afternoon, our small booth had attracted consistent traffic, including several notable regional buyers. Just after 3 o'clock, a distinguished man in his 60s approached, sampling each product methodically before introducing himself. Walter Simmons, Portland Culinary Review. My heart skipped. Walter Simmons was the most respected food critic in the Pacific Northwest, known for his uncompromising standards and brutal honesty. "Your roasted garlic aioli," he said after a thoughtful pause. "It reminds me of something I used to get at a small deli years ago. Perfect balance of richness and acidity." "Carson's Deli," I said quietly. "That was my father's recipe." Walter's eyebrows rose slightly. "James Carson was your father?" I didn't realize he had another daughter in the business. "It's complicated," I admitted. "The best things usually are," he replied, taking a business card from his pocket. "I'm doing a feature on authentic food producers next month. Small companies focused on quality rather than growth. I'd like to include you." As he walked away, Ryan pulled me into an unexpected hug. "Do you realize what just happened? Walter Simmons hasn't written a positive review of a packaged food product in 3 years. "It's the recipes," I said, emotion tightening my throat. "Dad's legacy. It wasn't lost after all." By the end of the expo, we had orders from 27 specialty stores and 2 regional distributors, far exceeding our most optimistic projections. As we packed up our remaining samples, I noticed the Carson's booth across the way, now conspicuously quiet despite its flashy displays and uniformed staff. Later that evening, as Ryan and I celebrated with dinner at Harper House, Amanda texted again. "Taylor threw a fit when she heard about Walter Simmons visiting your booth. Your mother had to pull her into a private room. Something big is happening." I showed Ryan the message, unsure how to feel. Part of me still ached for the family connection I'd lost, even while another part felt vindicated by this small victory. "You don't need to destroy them to succeed," Ryan said gently, reading my expression. "Your path can be completely separate from theirs." "Is that possible in such a small industry?" Ryan's hand covered mine on the table, warm and steady. "I think you'll find your own way forward. You already are." As we talked late into the night, planning next steps for our fledgling company, I realized I had stopped looking backward. For the first time since my father's death, I was building something that felt entirely mine, entirely right. Annabelle's Authentic is proud to announce our partnership with Westside Grocers, bringing our products to 30 new locations this fall. I smiled at the small gathering of food bloggers and local press in our newly expanded production facility. 6 months after the Food Expo, we had grown from 5 products to 15, from 0 stores to over 70 regional placements. Each new account felt like validation of our approach, each positive review a quiet affirmation that quality still mattered. "Will you be competing directly with Carson's Fine Foods Premium Reserve line?" asked a reporter from Portland Business Monthly. The question was inevitable, but still uncomfortable. "We don't see ourselves as competing with any specific brand," I answered carefully. "Our focus is creating exceptional products for customers who value quality ingredients and traditional methods." "But you were previously the product development executive at Carson's," the reporter persisted, "and their new line launched shortly after yours." "I'll always be grateful for my years at Carson's," I said, sticking to our prepared statement. "But Annabelle's Authentic represents a new chapter focused on honoring traditional food craftsmanship." After the press left, Ryan brought out champagne for our small team, now grown to 8 full-time employees, including Darren, who had left Carson's to become our production manager. To 6 months of exceeding expectations, Ryan toasted, his eyes finding mine across the circle. Our relationship had evolved alongside the business, professional respect deepening into personal connection, though both of us had been careful to keep boundaries clear. The company needed our focused attention, we agreed. Complications could wait. "And to our fearless leader," added Darren, raising his glass toward me, "who never compromised on quality, even when it would have been easier." The celebration was interrupted by my phone ringing. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "Sorry, I need to take this," I said, stepping away from the group. "Are you watching Channel 8 right now?" Jessica demanded without greeting. "No, we just finished a press event." "Why?" "Carson's is recalling their premium reserve line, all of it. Some kind of contamination issue. It's all over the news." I found the nearest television in the break room, switching to local news where a reporter stood outside the Carson's headquarters. The voluntary recall affects all premium reserve products produced between May and July, the reporter explained. The company cites potential contamination from improper handling procedures, but emphasizes this is a precautionary measure. The camera cut to Taylor standing at a podium, her usual confidence noticeably diminished. At Carson's Fine Foods, customer safety is our absolute priority, she read woodenly from a prepared statement. While no illnesses have been reported, we are taking proactive steps to ensure our products meet the exacting standards our customers expect. Ryan appeared beside me, watching silently. This could destroy their reputation, I said quietly. Premium Reserve was their big national play. Are you concerned? He asked carefully. I should be glad, shouldn't I? After what they did to me, I turned to face him. But all I can think about is how devastated Dad would be seeing the family name associated with a quality scandal. Before Ryan could respond, my phone rang again. Unknown number. Annabelle Carson, I answered. Annabelle, it's Walter Simmons. The food critic's voice was crisp. I assume you've seen the news about Carson's. Just now. Yes. I'm expanding my article about your company into a feature on the changing landscape of artisanal foods versus mass production. The contrast between your approach and Carson's recent failures is too significant to ignore. My stomach tightened. Mr. Simmons, I'd prefer not to position our success in direct opposition to my family's company. Admirable loyalty, he said after a pause. But the story writes itself. Small, quality-focused company thrives, while industry giant stumbles. David versus Goliath. After hanging up, I paced our small office, conflicted. Publicity from Walter Simmons could accelerate our growth dramatically. But at what cost to the Carson name my father had built? You don't owe them protection, Ryan said gently. They certainly didn't protect you. It's not about them, I replied. It's about Dad, about what the name meant to him. Before we could discuss further, Darren knocked on the door frame. Sorry to interrupt, but Amanda's here. Says it's urgent. My former assistant stood in the reception area, visibly nervous, clutching a leather portfolio. I could lose my job for this, she said without preamble. But you need to see these documents. Inside the portfolio were internal reports detailing Carson's financial situation, sales declining across all stores, customer complaints up 60%. The Premium Reserve recall estimated to cost millions. They're in serious trouble, Amanda explained. Taylor pushed production too fast without proper quality controls. Your mother's been covering cash flow problems by taking out loans against the original store property. The original store, my father's first deli, where I'd grown up learning the business. The thought of losing it felt like losing him all over again. There's more, Amanda continued reluctantly. Your mother's been ill, heart problems apparently. The stress of the recall triggered some kind of episode yesterday. She's stable, but why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely audible. Amanda looked at me directly, because despite everything, I think you still care. And because half the staff is looking for jobs elsewhere, the company's imploding, Annabelle. After she left, Ryan found me staring out the window at the Portland skyline. This changes nothing about our path forward, he said firmly. Their problems aren't yours to solve. I know, I agreed. But I keep thinking about the employees, the vendors, the customers who've trusted the Carson name for decades. You have your own company to worry about now. I do, I nodded. And tomorrow, I'll focus entirely on that. But tonight, I need some time to process this. Later that evening, as I sat alone in my apartment reviewing production schedules, my doorbell rang. Opening it, I found myself face to face with my mother for the first time in nearly a year. She looked older, diminished somehow, the confident businesswoman replaced by someone fragile and uncertain. We stared at each other in silence until she finally spoke. May I come in? I stepped aside wordlessly, leading her to my small living room. Your place is lovely, she offered awkwardly. Why are you here, Mom? I asked, too emotionally exhausted for pleasantries. She clasped her hands tightly in her lap. We need your recipes for the Premium Reserve relaunch, the originals, your father's recipes. The audacity of the request left me momentarily speechless. Let me understand, I finally said. You fired me, blacklisted me throughout the industry, and now you want my intellectual property to save the company you took from me. The company is your legacy too, she argued. Your father would want you to help preserve it. Don't you dare use Dad to manipulate me, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You erased his wishes the moment he died. My mother's face hardened. We can pay you as a consultant, generously. I don't need your money. Annabelle's Authentic is doing quite well. So I've heard, she said tightly. Your little boutique operation. Very cute. But Carson's is a real company with real employees who depend on us. People who worked alongside your father for decades. The mention of those longtime employees gave me pause. Doris, who had managed the deli counter since I was a child. Miguel, who drove our delivery truck and knew every back road in 3 counties. They didn't deserve to suffer for my mother's and sister's mistakes. I need to think about it, I said finally. I'll let you know my decision tomorrow. After she left, I called Ryan, expecting him to talk me out of even considering the request. Instead, after listening quietly, he surprised me. What do you want, Annabelle? Not what would hurt them or help us. What would make you feel right about your father's legacy? I considered his question seriously. I want the Carson name to mean what it did when Dad was alive. Quality, integrity, fair treatment of people. Then maybe there's a third option beyond helping them or refusing, Ryan suggested. Something that serves your values without compromising what we're building. That night, I barely slept, weighing options and responsibilities, the past I couldn't change and the future still unwritten. By morning, I had reached a decision that felt right, if not easy. Whatever happened next would reshape both companies forever. The Carson's Fine Foods boardroom felt smaller than I remembered, or perhaps it was just that I had grown beyond its confines. My mother sat at the head of the table, Taylor beside her, both watching warily as I arranged documents in front of me. Before we discuss recipes, I began, I need to understand exactly where the company stands financially. That's confidential information, Taylor objected immediately. Not if you want my help, I replied calmly. I'm not walking in blind. My mother nodded reluctantly. Show her. The CFO, a new hire I didn't recognize, pushed financial statements across the table. The situation was even worse than Amanda had indicated. 3 consecutive quarters of losses. Credit lines maxed out. The premium reserve recall had depleted emergency reserves. You're 6 months from bankruptcy, I summarized, looking up from the papers. 4. If sales don't improve dramatically, the CFO corrected. And the original store property? The one Dad started with? My mother's gaze dropped to the table. We've leveraged it for operating capital. The bank could foreclose if we miss another payment. The thought of losing that historic location, with its worn wooden floors my father had installed himself, struck me physically. I had to take a moment before continuing. Here's my offer, I said finally. I'll provide consultation on reformulating the premium reserve line using proper quality standards. In exchange, I want 3 things. Taylor started to protest, but my mother held up her hand. Go on. First, public acknowledgement of my contribution to any reformulated products. Second, improved terms for the original suppliers you've been squeezing, especially the smaller family farms. Third, I want to see all documentation related to Dad's original succession plans. The room fell silent. Taylor shifted uncomfortably while my mother's expression remained unreadable. Why the sudden interest in helping? Taylor asked suspiciously. What's in it for you and your precious little company? I met her gaze steadily. The Carson name means something to me. It deserves better than what's happening here. Before anyone could respond, the boardroom door burst open, and a disheveled young man I recognized as Taylor's assistant rushed in. Sorry to interrupt, but it's urgent. Channel 8 is running a story about premium reserve production shortcuts. They have internal emails. It's bad. Taylor blanched visibly. What emails? The ones about substituting imported ingredients, when the marketing specifically claimed local sourcing, and the quality control warnings that were ignored before the contamination. The CFO swore under his breath. If this triggers a formal investigation, everyone out, my mother ordered suddenly, except Annabelle and Taylor. When the room cleared, she slumped slightly in her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 62 years. How much did you know about this? She asked Taylor, her voice dangerously quiet. Taylor's composure cracked. The cost targets you set were impossible with the original ingredients. What was I supposed to do? Not lie to our customers, my mother snapped. Not compromise safety protocols your grandfather established decades ago. You're blaming me? Taylor's voice rose hysterically. You're the one who insisted we needed to show massive growth every quarter. You're the one who said Annabelle's way was too slow, too cautious. I sat motionless, watching this unexpected fissure between them widen. I never told you to cut corners on safety, my mother insisted. You told me to do whatever it took to make the numbers work, Taylor shouted, tears forming. I never wanted this job in the first place. I wanted to study fashion design, but you said the family needed me here. The revelation struck me like physical blow. You never wanted to run Carson's? Taylor turned to me, years of resentment in her expression. Not everyone is obsessed with olive oil and cheese, Annabelle. Some of us had different dreams. Then why? I began, struggling to process this new information. Because Mom said I had to, Taylor cried. Because you were Dad's favorite, and I was supposed to be hers. Because every time I suggested doing something else with my life, she reminded me how disappointed she'd be. My mother's face had gone pale. She opened her mouth to respond, but instead clutched suddenly at her chest, her breathing becoming labored. Mom? Taylor's anger transformed instantly to concern. Call an ambulance, I ordered, already moving to my mother's side, helping her to lie down on the boardroom floor. Mom, focus on my voice. Help is coming. The next hours passed in a blur of emergency rooms and waiting areas. Taylor paced anxiously while I sat quietly, trying to process everything I'd learned. When the cardiologist finally approached, his expression was cautiously optimistic. Not a heart attack, but a severe arrhythmia triggered by stress. She's stable now, but she needs to reduce her stress levels immediately. Taylor and I were allowed in to see her briefly. Our mother looked fragile against the white hospital sheets, monitoring equipment beeping softly around her. The company, she whispered when she saw us, is the least of your concerns right now, I replied firmly. But the bank? I'll handle it, Taylor interjected. Somehow. After visiting hours ended, Taylor and I found ourselves in the hospital cafeteria, two sisters who had become strangers, sharing vending machine coffee. I never knew you didn't want the CEO position, I said finally. Taylor stared into her cup. Would it have mattered? Mom had made up her mind. But why did she push you into a role you didn't want? Why not just let me continue running things? Taylor was quiet for so long, I thought she wouldn't answer. When she did, her voice was barely audible. There's something you don't know, something I found years ago. From her purse, she withdrew a small leather-bound journal. Mom's private diary. I found it when I was 16, looking for Christmas present hiding spots. She pushed it across the table. Read it, particularly the entries after Dad died. With trembling fingers, I opened the journal to the marked page, my mother's familiar handwriting flowing across the paper. James is gone, and with him, the careful balance we maintained. He never knew how much it hurt. Watching him groom Annabelle as his successor, the two of them so alike, so connected through their precious business. He thought I didn't notice how he looked at her with such pride, such certainty. My daughter will follow my path, I heard him tell vendors. My legacy is secure in her hands. But what about my legacy? What about Taylor, who has my creativity, my vision? James built a quaint little deli. I'm the one who saw its potential for growth, for expansion. He resisted at every turn, clinging to his romantic notions of quality over profit. Now that he's gone, I can finally show what Carson's can truly become. And Taylor will be my instrument, as Annabelle was his. I closed the journal, stunned. She was jealous of my relationship with Dad, of how much he loved you, Taylor corrected quietly, how much he valued your opinion. She felt invisible next to the two of you. So she used you to erase his vision and my place in it. She used both of us, Taylor said wearily. Me as her puppet, you as her scapegoat. We sat in silence, two daughters shaped by a mother's wounded pride and a father's absent guidance. What happens now? I finally asked. The company's still in crisis. Taylor laughed bitterly. I have absolutely no idea how to fix this. I never did. Every successful product we ever had came from your development team. The admission hung between us. honest in a way we hadn't been with each other in years. I might, I said slowly. Have an idea, that is, but it would mean significant changes. At this point, Taylor replied, I'm open to anything that doesn't involve complete collapse. Even if it means working with me? Taylor met my eyes, something like hope flickering across her face, especially if it means that. The autumn sunshine streamed through the windows of the original Carson's Deli as I adjusted the vintage photographs on the freshly painted wall. 3 months of intensive work had transformed the space, restoring its classic charm while subtly updating its functionality. Today was the grand reopening, the first public event for the newly restructured Carson Family Foods. The bakery delivery is here, called Ryan from the back door, and the newspaper photographer arrives in 20 minutes. I smiled at him gratefully. What would I do without you? Thankfully, you'll never have to find out, he replied, squeezing my hand briefly before returning to the kitchen. The merger had been his idea initially, a bold solution to an impossible situation. Combine Annabelle's authentic quality approach with Carson's infrastructure and distribution network. Create a new parent company that honored both traditions while moving forward with integrity. The execution had been complex, requiring brutal honesty, legal precision, and emotional courage from everyone involved. These look amazing, Taylor said, entering with a tray of sample cups containing our signature sauces. Her natural talent for visual presentation had found its proper outlet in our new marketing approach, emphasizing transparency and authenticity. Dad would approve, I agreed, watching her arrange everything with meticulous care. Our relationship remained a work in progress, years of resentment and competition not easily erased, but we had found a tentative common ground in saving both the family legacy and our mother's health. Taylor had stepped down as CEO to become creative director, a role that finally utilized her strengths without forcing her into operational decisions she never wanted. Is Mom still coming? She asked casually, though I caught the underlying tension in her voice. Her doctor cleared her. As long as she takes it easy, I confirmed. Jessica's picking her up. Our mother's recovery had been gradual, both physically and emotionally. The journal revelations had forced painful conversations about her choices after our father's death, her manipulation of both daughters to fulfill her own needs. Therapy had been a non-negotiable part of our reconciliation process, individual and family sessions that had begun to untangle decades of unspoken resentment. The bell above the door chimed as our first guests arrived, former employees from both companies now united under the new structure. Boss, Darren called cheerfully, carrying an enormous flower arrangement from the production team. They said to tell you they're on target for the new holiday line. The next hour passed in a whirlwind of greetings, explanations, and tours of the renovated space. Local vendors who had supplied my father decades ago mingled with new artisanal producers. Food critics chatted with loyal customers. Through it all, Ryan remained at my side, a steady presence as I navigated the complex emotions of the day. There she is, he murmured, nodding toward the door where Jessica was helping my mother inside. She moved more slowly now, but her eyes were clear and alert as she took in the transformed space. I watched her expression as she noted the enlarged photograph of my father behind the counter, the vintage menu boards listing his original recipes, the plaque dedicating the space to his memory. Annabelle, she said as I approached, you've done something remarkable here. We all have, I corrected gently. It took all of us to save what Dad built. Her eyes filled with tears, a vulnerability she would never have shown a year ago. He would be so proud of you. I should have told you that long ago. Before I could respond, Walter Simmons appeared at my elbow, notebook in hand. The prodigal daughter returns and brings the family business back to its roots, he observed. Quite the story arc, Miss Carson. It's a story about finding balance, I replied, between growth and quality, between innovation and tradition. And forgiveness, it seems, he added, glancing between me and my mother. That's still a work in progress, I admitted. Some chapters take longer to write than others. The ceremonial ribbon cutting was scheduled for noon, and as the time approached, Ryan gathered everyone around the front counter where my father had served his first customers 30 years earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, it's my honor to introduce the CEO of Carson Family Foods, the woman whose vision and integrity have created something truly unique in our industry, Annabelle Carson. The applause washed over me as I stepped forward, suddenly overwhelmed by the journey that had brought me to this moment. From rejected daughter to business leader, from bitter exile to architect of reconciliation. "Thank you all for coming today," I began. "This store represents not just our past, but our future. A future built on the principles my father valued. Quality ingredients, honest relationships, and food made with genuine care." I gestured toward the kitchen where our new team was preparing samples. "Every product we make, whether it's served here in the original deli or shipped to stores across the country, will meet the standard established in this building. No shortcuts, no compromises." My mother stepped forward then, something clutched in her hands. "Annabelle, before we continue, there's something that belongs to you." She handed me a small wooden box I recognized immediately. My father's recipe journal, its leather cover worn from years of use, his handwriting filling pages with precise measurements and thoughtful notes. "He always meant for you to have this," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I should never have kept it from you." As I held the journal, feeling its familiar weight, I noticed my mother's face had gone pale with emotion, just as the thumbnail text had predicted. The journey had come full circle. Not through revenge, but through reclaiming what truly mattered, the values and knowledge my father had entrusted to me. "With this journal," I continued, addressing the gathered crowd but looking directly at my mother, "we honor not just recipes but a philosophy. Food brings people together. It heals divisions. It connects us to our past while nourishing our future." Taylor joined us then, completing our family circle, her hand resting lightly on our mother's shoulder. For all our broken places, all our missteps and misunderstandings, we stood together now, finding a new way forward. Later, as guests enjoyed samples and tours, Ryan found me in the quiet of my father's restored office. "How does it feel?" he asked softly. "To bring it all back home?" I ran my fingers over my father's desk, restored to its original place. Like completion. Like something broken has been mended, not perfectly, but honestly. Ryan's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining naturally. "The best repairs show their history," he said. "They're stronger for having been broken and rebuilt." As we rejoined the celebration, watching my mother describing original recipes to interested customers, Taylor charming local media with her natural poise, I realized the truth of his words. Our family business had been broken, but its reconstruction contained something more valuable than simple success. It held accountability, forgiveness, and the courage to build something authentic from the fragments of what was lost. The path forward wouldn't be perfect. My mother and I would still navigate difficult moments. Taylor and I would still occasionally bristle at old sensitivities. But we had found a way to honor the past while creating something new, something that reflected the best of who we all could be. In the end, it wasn't about winning or losing, revenge or triumph. It was about building something genuine, something worthy of my father's legacy and our shared future. A legacy of quality, integrity, and the understanding that true success comes not from defeating others, but from remaining true to your own values, even when the path grows difficult. Have you ever had to choose between seeking revenge and working toward reconciliation? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about family, business, and finding your authentic path. And share this video with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your adversaries but rebuilding something better together. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on your own path to healing and wholeness.